Halloween Kills is the most divisive horror film released by a major studio since James Wan's Malignant, maybe? But more than that, it has lit the fires of the internet film discourse like few horror films have done in recent memory, and for good reason. Halloween Kills is a messy, gory, and wildly chaotic movie. But the more time that I spend with it, going over the jumbled social commentary, meandering story, and overindulgence in bloody violence, the more I'm convinced that that was entirely the point of the film. For those who don't know, Halloween Kills is the 12th installment of the ongoing Halloween franchise that began all the way back in 1978 with John Carpenter's immortal classic. A direct sequel to 2018's Halloween, both films are directed by David Gordon Green and serve as the first two installments of a planned trilogy that will conclude next year with Halloween Ends. This newest Halloween trilogy, which disregards all previous sequels to the original, follows a traumatized Laurie Strode, played by the iconic Scream Queen Jamie Lee Curtis, as she is pitted against serial killer Michael Myers once again 40 years after their first encounter. This time around, Laurie's family, consisting of her estranged daughter Karen, played by Judy Greer, and her granddaughter Allison, played by Andi Matichak, join Laurie as Michael makes his murderous return to Haddonfield on Halloween night. Together, the three deliver a brutal ass-kicking to Myers, trapping him inside a burning tomb that would have otherwise killed him had it not been for some pesky firefighters. Before we begin, I think it's important to discuss a few things first, namely the film's divisive reception since its opening weekend. Despite grossing over $50 million during its debut, reception to Halloween Kills has been much harsher from fans and critics than the previously critically acclaimed 2018 Halloween. Among the most common criticisms are the film's messy plotting and campy dialogue, a lack of Laurie and Michael action, and a general dislike of the film's attempts at social commentary and richer cinematic themes, critiques that I do all happen to share in some ways. But make no mistake, despite the title of this video, I've come to love Halloween Kills, warts and all. I will admit, however, I was more than a little disappointed after my first viewing, and it took 2 additional viewings with my friends before I formed my majority positive review. I can also understand how some audiences and critics would have reacted so harshly to this film, given that it is focused a whole lot more on gore and terror than the richer character development and plotting in the 2018 Halloween. This Halloween is meaner, darker, and much more explicit with its kills, and given the title, that should be a given. For me, one of the most baffling criticisms of this movie is the film's insane body count and gore. I mean, not only is the movie called Halloween Kills, but I think the purpose of the violence, and by extension the film itself, has been overlooked by many, and the real reason for its chaotic plotting and story might also be linked into this as well. Let me explain. The overall story of Halloween Kills revolves around the town of Haddonfield striking back against Michael Myers after he manages to escape Laurie's burning basement, taking almost a dozen first responders down with him along the way. As his killing spree horrifically ramps up, the citizens of the small town, wanting to rid themselves of the boogeyman once and for all, take to the streets in an attempt to take the madman on face to face. But they find out the hard way that Laurie and Dr. Loomis were correct in their assessments that Michael is nothing more than the physical embodiment of pure evil, and he wreaks havoc and bloody revenge upon the town of Haddonfield. Amidst all this murder and mayhem, chaos descends as people cry out for Michael's head and for their dead loved ones to be avenged. It's quite fitting then, given the mob that forms from all this chaos, that the film's screenplay and dialogue are equally chaotic. The humor present in the 2018 film is greatly scaled back, replaced with a more macabre, pitch black humor that I think works a lot better with Michael Myers and the Halloween franchise overall, though that doesn't stop some moments and lines from being unintentionally hilarious, like the infamous "Evil Dies Tonight" mantra that has already become a meme, and not in a good way. And the real tragedy of this is that I think there could have been a way to make it work, but there are just too many instances where characters would say it and it would just be so incredibly forced. The hospital plotline has also been the topic of much debate, many on the side of it being filler, a waste of time, and a ham-fisted attempt at a broader social message. I will concede that the writing in this particular storyline is weak and it could have been better, but I don't think its inclusion is troublesome or a detraction from the overall film. In fact, it actually serves to highlight my point that the film is intentionally provoking a chaotic state of mind in the viewer. David Gordon Green and Dana McBride want us to feel disoriented. This is how many people in a small town would react to such violence and trauma. And you know what? I'm just gonna come out and say it. I think some of the harshest critics of this film just can't stand the idea that they wouldn't be one of the main characters in this situation. They'd be just another voice screaming and running through the halls like the madman that they think they're chasing. Or worse yet, they'd be just another one of Michael's innocent victims that were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. This is another story beat that either gets overlooked or criticized as being poorly written, and one of the most common criticisms of this scene is that it takes up too much screen time. I went back and checked, and the entire hospital mob storyline takes up about 11 minutes of screen time. But this is also being divided between several other storylines. One of them is the actual present murder of a couple living in the Myers house by Michael, while another set of characters have already deduced that that is where Michael has been heading this entire time. So in all actuality, this hospital storyline probably only takes up about 7 minutes of a 1 hour and 45-minute film. It being intercut with another one of Michael's murders also further serves the mob storyline in a subtle way, while also furthering the chaotic nature of the film in a situation which has finally boiled over at the hospital, leading to yet another loss of innocent life, only this time at the hands of Haddonfield, not Michael. That this victim is a mental patient, a man whose life and health had been entrusted to by the state, only for him to become a scapegoat due to no fault of his own, was certainly done on purpose, as it's something that has occurred all throughout our history, and it continues to this day. This is yet another overlooked layer of this film, and a reason that I implore people to see a movie more than once before forming a solid review or opinion. There's nuances in a story and dialogue that you'll miss the first time around, and not every film is an immediate classic, not even the original Halloween. Remember, critics dismissed Halloween at first, and it wasn't until after a few prominent critics saw the genius of Carpenter's work that other critics and audiences started turning around. Back to the film's violence, another common criticism of this film is that it is merely a filler movie designed to beef up Michael's body count and just squeeze a bit more money out of the franchise. And unfortunately, these are both kind of true, but this is modern Hollywood now. You can't praise the MCU for continuing its storyline with its interweaving sequels, then slam the Halloween franchise for trying to naturally extend its storyline instead of endlessly tacking on sequels like before. This is not just another case of producers wanting to make a quick buck. The 2018 Halloween was pitched as a two-part film to be made back-to-back, but the studio decided to hold off until the 2018 film was released to go forward with a sequel. And come on, look at these numbers for 2018's Halloween. There's no way Blumhouse and Universal wouldn't try to at least get 2 more movies out of this. These profit margins are just too big. There's obviously a plan here, and Halloween Kills is more essential to this branch of the franchise than you might think. And here's why. Picture for a moment that the 2018 Halloween comes out. It's a success, but not a huge success, so they decide to just make one more sequel. Maybe the story of Halloween Kills is condensed into a 20-minute intro or whatever, but the point is Michael and Laurie have one more fight and then it's done. Think about how unsatisfying that would be. First of all, we were already promised Michael and Laurie's final confrontation in the last film, and by making a sequel with basically the same premise, you're basically saying that the 2018 Halloween was also just a filler movie made to set up the real final confrontation. That would be hilariously ineffective and stupid. Not only would we have the entire Strode family still alive, but all the 1978 characters and anyone else that they decided to bring back from the 2018 film would also still be alive. There'd be no real sense of urgency or heightened drama. I mean, not only that, but remember, by erasing all of the previous Halloween films, Michael's total body count before the 2018 film was only 5. His sister Judith, the truck driver he stole his clothes from, Annie Brackett, Linda, and her boyfriend Bob. With the 2018 Halloween and now Halloween Kills, Michael's body count has been effectively multiplied by 10, easily matching and surpassing most, if not all, of the previous Halloween timelines. The purpose of this was not just to provide audiences with plenty of carnage candy, but also to tie into their own spin on the Michael Myers mythos. If you've been paying attention, the filmmakers behind this new trilogy alongside producer-composer John Carpenter have made it clear that their iteration of Michael Myers is more in line with the original 1978 film, just another everyday man like you and I, only he's a psychotic murderer who just happens to live across the street. Though by the end of Kills, it becomes abundantly clear that Michael Myers has transcended what little humanity he had left, and has truly become the Shape, the boogeyman of Haddonfield, the monster of Halloween. And this isn't because the filmmakers have suddenly changed their minds and reverted back to the previous sequel's mythology, as some fans have cried out. This is how Michael Myers has always been portrayed, even in the 1978 film. Sure, you could argue that Myers could have survived any of the numerous injuries inflicted upon him in that film, but it is highly unlikely that a normal human being could have survived all of them. Think about it, Laurie's stabbings and attacks alone would have killed any other normal human serial killer stalking her, and Dr. Loomis's 6 gunshots, plus his fall from a second-story window, should have killed Michael then and there had he been a human from the start. And that is the whole point of this trilogy and what so many of the sequels missed about what made the original so brilliant. Everything that you need from Michael's backstory and motivation is in that original 1978 film, and these new films are all about bringing those elements to the forefront. Michael has never been just human, he's always been supernatural to a degree. The 2018 Halloween reset the timeline and allowed for a natural, modern continuation of the original Halloween, and now Halloween Kills has showcased Michael's mayhem and brought him up to speed with all his previous iterations without having resorted to convoluted cult mythologies or blood ties to keep the story and franchise afloat. What Green and McBride are going for here is so much more effective with how elegant and simplistic it is, and if you're a longtime Halloween fan, you may already know this. A popular long-running theory is that Michael's sole motivation in his killings is to recreate the murder of his sister Judith over and over again for as long as he lives. And this is brilliantly elaborated on with the mentions about Michael staring out his window, and the final scene of the film in where Michael finally recreates the actual murder by killing Karen Strode in the exact same spot. Combine that with Michael single-handedly dispatching the mob that almost ended him once and for all, implying that he has finally become immortal. The final showdown between Laurie and Michael is bound to be one for the ages. And you know what? It wouldn't be possible without Halloween Kills to set it up in the first place. With Karen killed off and the rest of Haddonfield now left to pick up the pieces of their ruined town, the stakes have now been raised to an almost insane degree going into Halloween Ends. Laurie, and by association her granddaughter Allison, have so much more invested in their mission to bring Michael down once and for all, only this time they'll have an arsenal of fellow victims and survivors at their side to fight against Michael. The COVID-19 pandemic and isolation that has gripped the world since is only going to provide more fodder for the filmmakers to sink their teeth into, and I for one can't wait to see the aftermath of Michael's historic murder spree not only on the town of Haddonfield, but of the world at large. Halloween Kills is a messy and unyieldy horror film that tries to do a lot in its short runtime. Maybe David Gordon Green and his team bit off more than they could chew, and only time will tell if their grand narrative will pay off in the end. I will concede that the film's uneven tone and campy dialogue are hard to sit through when they're present on screen, but the overall mood, brutality, and the scope of what the movie accomplishes far outweigh the bad in my opinion. This Halloween isn't just another cash grab sequel, or an excuse to indulge in mindless violence. Everything here, the hospital scene, the sheer volume of murders, the confusing and oftentimes idiotic decision making, it was all done on purpose, I think. Granted, there may have been some hastily last-minute editing choices, which will certainly become clearer when the extended Blu-ray edition is released, but they do not detract from the overall experience that is Halloween Kills. This is a gorehound slasher movie for the ages, and yes, it may go against the simplistic elegance of John Carpenter's Halloween, and yes, its messaging may be a little too on the nose for some, but this is 2021. We are far past the point of subtlety in horror. That is not what slasher movies or even the original Halloween was all about. Yes, the original Halloween used minimal gore and blood, but I think that was mostly due to budget constraints rather than an artistic choice. I mean, Carpenter clearly has no issue with gore, as the fan favorite Halloween 2 was written by him and features scenes directed by him that all they were there for was to add extra gore. I think the divisive reaction to this film all boils down to what your expectations were going in. I think a lot of people didn't know about the upcoming Halloween Ends. I think some may have expected more Jamie Lee Curtis. I think some could have been put off by any number of the film's flaws. I'm not detracting from those who had a negative experience watching this movie. I only implore you to maybe give the film a second watch now that you know what to expect going in. By my third watch, I was beginning to see the full picture of what David and his team were going for with this take on Halloween. And their addition additions to the Michael Myers mythos have me intrigued, and they reveal just the right amount of information about his motivation without giving too much away about the mystery that makes him such a fascinating character. This Michael Myers has never been scarier or more intriguing, and it's largely thanks to Jude Courtney, who I think may be the best stuntman to ever play the character. The choices that he makes in his movements, such as when he playfully drives knife after knife into the back of a clearly dead man, all while his dying wife sits on in horror, bring back the eerie and sadistic side that has been missing from Michael Myers for decades. This Michael Myers feels more than man, but also like a true character instead of a mindless killing machine. The music, composed by John Carpenter and his sons, is spectacular as always, recalling the themes of the past films, but also providing some new motifs and themes as usual. It's first-rate material and really elevates the franchise as it always has, and remains a highlight of the new trilogy thus far. Getting John Carpenter and Jamie Lee Curtis as well was a stroke of luck for the producers, and there's no doubt in my mind that these Halloween films wouldn't be nearly as successful without them. There's been much discussion about the film's success at the box office, but two factors that I don't see get mentioned are the sheer popularity of the franchise and Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. The actress and the character are every part of the series as Michael is, and you saw this reflected in some of the negative reviews that complained about a lack of Laurie's screen time. This is something that is bound to be corrected in Ends, and if we're being honest, if Laurie just got up and fought Michael after being stabbed in the stomach, you would have been complaining about that too. Halloween Ends is shaping up to be the most dramatic and epic Halloween yet, and my hope is that the team here sticks the landing and gives fans a better appreciation for Halloween Kills and the story that it was trying to tell. Kills is far from perfect, and it suffers from a lack of focus and too many plot points to tell a coherent story in just one movie. But that was never the intention of the filmmakers. They've had big plans for this story ever since they were brought on board, and now with the stage set for the finale, there's no telling what chaos will unfold next Halloween when Michael makes his final return to Haddonfield. With the town angry and ready for blood, it's anyone's guess who will make it out of Halloween Ends alive and what the final body count will be. There's no shortage of citizens ready to exact their pound of flesh. There's Deputy Hawkins, who I was happy to see come back after a wonderful turn by Will Patton in the 2018 Halloween. There's Allison, who's now lost her mother, her father, and her boyfriend, not to mention all her best friends. There's even the sheriff, who's now looking for redemption after failing to contain Michael's mayhem. Halloween Ends has a lot to live up to, not just with its story, but with fans and critics alike. The near unanimous acclaim of the 2018 Halloween has given way to division, but this is the Halloween franchise after all, so what else is new? It is possible, I guess, that Ends will fail to live up to the hype and will end the trilogy on a whimper rather than a bang, but something in my gut tells me that this is not the case. I have even more faith now, after the seedlings and nuggets of information we're given in Kills, that Ends will be the fresh and epic conclusion fans have been waiting for since the 2018 Halloween. Laurie and the rest of Haddonfield have nothing left to lose, and witnessing the possible end of Michael Myers is sure to be an explosive experience, and one to be seen in theaters. My overall opinions on Halloween Kills may change, but as it stands right now, it was more than a satisfying horror slasher, and proves that Michael Myers and the Halloween franchise have now become synonymous with American horror. Audiences have spoken with their wallets. They love Michael Myers, and I'm sure even after Ends has come out and Jamie Lee and everyone else has moved on, there will be some filmmaker out there bold enough to try to bring the Haddonfield boogeyman back to life. Until then, we have the promise of at least one more fight between the ultimate slasher icon and the reigning Scream Queen in the town that he has terrorized for over 48 years. Halloween 2022 can't get here quick enough. But in the meantime, I have a brand new Haddonfield horror to sink my teeth into, along with the rest of this iconic franchise. Halloween and Michael Myers were instrumental in developing my love for horror and cinema, and it's been such a treat to share this experience with so many people. Regardless of how we feel about each film, I think we can all agree that when it comes to American horror and slashers in general, Halloween certainly kills. Thank you as always for joining me tonight. I had a blast recording and editing this review for you guys. Let me know your opinions down below of Halloween Kills. Did you like it? Are you on the fence about it? Did you absolutely hate it? Are you looking forward to Halloween Ends? Let's start the conversation right now. As always, you guys please take good care of yourselves, stay safe, and I will see you all again here real soon.